I've often dreamed of this opportunity. I'm standing at the very point and within the grounds of the very place where two peoples would become one nation. Māori and Pākehā. Why this grounds is so important? Because a treaty got signed at this very spot. If you were to ask me, what are my emotions that are going through me whilst I'm speaking to you? I would tell you now in candor, they are very mixed. Crown were dependent and reliant on the missionary, largely because for them to forge a relationship with Māori, they would first have to understand the reo, the language, because though the treaty would be written in English, it would also have to be written in Māori. There was one man who would be called upon, Henry Williams. He would interpret the treaty from English into the Māori language. Therefore, there would be a partnership largely because the treaty, as any contract, modern contemporary contractors today, would be written in both languages. Why my emotions are mixed? Because as I understand the history of what was taking place, and we can look in retrospect of this event, and we could say to ourselves, well, there was broken promises. Yes, there was. We could say to ourselves, well, there were lies. Yes, there was. So, was this treaty fraudulent? In some ways it was. There was a prophet by the name of Aperahama, a Poropiti, a Māori prophet, and he had said in prophecy to Māori, he said, when it comes to the signing of the treaty, and he said this as an omen, he said, ensure that you don't just sign it on this, the British flag. He said, make certain that there's a korowai as part of that signage process. Meaning, in effect, the korowai could be underneath this flag. But then he said these very words. He said, because you signed the treaty on this flag, because you signed the treaty without having the partnership of the korowai seen as a very positive omen, he said you'll have spiders. What he really was saying, the spiders was not unlike that of lies. But he said something very interesting. He said, because you signed the treaty on the flag, but you didn't try, the korowai wasn't a part of it, he said there's going to be spiders in your homes. That's what happened. If we were to look at history, we would find this as being the case. That's why today we've got the tribunal hearings taking place. And by the way, while I'm speaking to you, even Ngāpui, which are a large part of what happens in this area, they are hosts to this area. Even today, they are still in discussions about their own settlements. My concern and why I have mixed emotions is because the missionary was a representative of Iwatua, the God of Abraham. The missionary was God's representative. And Henry Williams, I had to ask myself, what was his motive? He had engaged in such a relationship with Māori that Hone Heke had great confidence in him. And I want you to look at this situation. When Huni came to sign it, he looked at Henry. And Henry gave him the thumbs up. Te Wiramu. He signed it. Now, because you have somebody like Huni Heke, the first to sign the treaty, it's only natural that the others would follow suit. Why, I ask myself, what was his motive? I'm talking about Henry Williams, because if he had said to Māori, don't sign it, they wouldn't have signed it. This is my belief. It's my belief that the reason why Henry Williams was keen to have Māori sign the treaty, because he could see there was a need for a judicial system. You had whalers coming into the ports. You had prostitution happening. You could see Māori getting misled. Our young women were going into prostitution. And he felt that there was a need for a policing of this conduct. The only way that could take place, and that if there was a Crown authority, a judicial system that would come with that package. So therefore he was keen to see them sign it. So that's why I've had mixed emotions, because I went to bed one night after reading this record. I went to bed saying to myself, what was your motive, Henry? What was your motive? And I'll be candid. It's not like I heard a voice from Iwatua, but in my own rationale. Now that's could be disputed, and I know some of you could be doing a haka just listening to me. But to my reasoning and thinking, I believe his motive was pure. How do I know that? Because several times when there was controversy between iwi, it was Henry Williams that would be right there as a peacemaker saying, stop, don't fight. It was Henry Williams that was doing this. He won the favour of Māori because he was willing, and they would have a mere like this before his face, and he'd just stand there. They'd have a tie harp, and he'd just stand there, and he was a peacemaker. But because of that, and because he was willing to learn the reo of the Māori people, the language, he won their favour. So at that point of the signing, he would be the basis of whether Māori signed or didn't. That's quite a powerful authority to have. That's my conviction. And so here I am at this grounds where two peoples would become one nation. But I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to read to you. This was all taking place in February the 6th, 1840. And it's all about a covenant. It's all about an agreement. It's all about two peoples coming together. It's all about the signing. But I'm going to let you know of another covenant that was taking place. This was a covenant that was signed by the authority of the blood of Jesus Christ. And I'm going to read to you some of the figures of what was happening in terms of church attendance of Māori at this time of the signing of the treaty. Listen to these figures. 1839 to the year, there were 2,000 church attendees, Māori I'm talking about. 1840, the same year that the treaty was being signed, there was 8,760 church attendants. What does that tell us? That's a leap from 2,000 to over 8,760 in a matter of only 12 months period, thereabouts. Now listen to this record. In only a space of 1840 to 1841, there were 29,320 church attendants. My gosh! So what is this telling me? around that period where the treaty was being signed, and let's be candid about it, it was signed in lies. Yet God was signing a treaty with Māori. Now listen to this last figure. 1842, there was 35,000 church attendances. So that tells me this. In those years, 1839 going into 1840, around the same time of the treaty, God was having a revival. That was a treaty that was being signed by the power of the blood of Jesus Christ. Here I am, standing on the very grounds where the treaty was signed. But there's another side to this coin. I'm part of the last stage generation. And this is how I'm reading it. Yes, it was true. The treaty was signed in lies. Iwatua didn't leave it there, because today a pendulum favour has been swung toward Māori. I'm going to be here to be boastful. I'm going to fill you in on what's really happening today. We are now seeing an explosion of the glory of God. We are seeing lives being changed. Every meeting that I'm taking in Northland at the moment, every meeting is having a manifestation of God's goodness on the paradigm of His glory being manifest here today. So what is my diagnostic of this whole area? It's my belief is this. Yes, Iwatua knew that it was being signed in lies and it was a covenant. Albeit, he knew there'd come a time when he was going to reverse it. And as much as it got even reversed in 1840, because this side of the story needs to be told. Most New Zealanders only know about what happened between Māori and Pākehā and what happened when Pākehā didn't keep their side of the covenant. This side of the story has to be told. And it is the side of what God was doing in 1840. But here I am today, 2017. Tonight I'm about to take a meeting that's called a revival meeting. I'm seeing nightly changes taking place. I'm seeing bandwidths of His glory being manifest. Now what does that tell me? I believe Iwatua was overlooking, because why? When you make a covenant between yourselves, when two peoples make a covenant, what's really happening? There's always a third witness, and it's God Himself. He overlooks covenants, treaties, and He has said in Himself that there'd come a time and He's going to reverse it. But His land of promise, if I may say, it's not a whenua like this. It's a whenua in which His goodness is manifest and where He changes lives. Do you know what? While I'm standing here, rain's starting to fall. How applicable. He's pouring out of His Spirit upon all flesh. Kia kaha, Aotearoa, New Zealand. We are in God. In good times, God defend New Zealand.